With us now is Herman Cain, former GOP presidential candidate and current syndicated radio talk show host out of WSB in Atlanta.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Nice to see you. Well, we're here at the Job Creators Alliance Free Enterprise Leadership Summit in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Just talk to us about the summit and what's your message to attendees here?
Two messages. Number one, E to E, employer to employees. And I think that is a secret weapon that conservatives can use by educating their employees in order to create more and better informed voters. I happen to believe, like a lot of other people, that we have too many uninformed or no information voters, and many of our own employees really don't understand the business model of the company that they work for, and many of them do not understand the business model in general, and this is an opportunity to help better inform them, and particularly showing them how business decisions, governmental regulations, taxation could impact their job. The second objective is to talk about what I call the road to prosperity. The conservatives talk about reaching out to minorities, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, all people. I believe it boils down to three simple things. Talk about removing the barriers to education. Talk about removing the barriers to economic growth. And that starts with replacing the tax code. And thirdly, talk about how people can achieve ownership. That's what everybody in America wants, and it's not about color.
Now, the Obama administration tells us that the economy has been improved and that while there's still more work to be done, that the economy is in pretty good shape. What do you view as the reality?
The reality is this economy is not improving. It is still at a very sluggish rate in terms of measurements like GDP growth. I don't call 0.4% in the last quarter of last year good economic growth. We need to be growing north of 2.5% to 3%. We're not, nowhere near it. Secondly, every GDP growth projection that the administration has used for the past 4 years has been missed on the low side. The reality is business people are hesitant to expand because of the impact or the unknowns relative to Obamacare. The regulatory onslaught that has taken place in the last several years has caused a lot of people to simply give up and go out of business. Here's an example, Kathleen. I have doctors telling me that they're going to retire early simply because of Obamacare and the cuts in Medicare. That's frightening. And so the reality is this economy is stalled. It is not growing. All you have to do is look at the unemployment numbers and look at the weekly jobless claims number. They're still averaging 350,000 a week.
Is there an end in sight to this?
Not under this administration, because this administration will not change policies. Even in the president's budget that he finally put out there, it's more of the same. More spending, another $1 trillion in taxes, and he even included some items in his budget that have already been voted down in previous years by Republicans and some Democrats. More of the same is going to produce more of the same.
Now, Republicans being in the minority in Washington, how do you think that they're handling this? I mean, what should their strategy be in future budget negotiations?
I believe that the Republican strategy should quite simply be do what's right. Whether you will be able to get it to pass the Senate or not, do what's right. First of all, they put a budget on the table that balances. President Obama's budget doesn't balance. They put a budget on the table that was going to get the national debt and reduce the deficit gradually over time. They included in their budget were some changes in restructuring Medicare, not just cutting, restructuring. I think as long as they do the right thing and make that known to their conservative followers and supporters, that's what people want to see, even though they don't control both houses of Congress.
Now, in unveiling the budget, his budget proposal rather, the president said everybody's got to pay their fair share. We keep hearing this over and over and over again. What's your take on this? And is this budget just another attack on the rich?
It's just another attack on the rich. It's another installment on class warfare. He says it over and over and over and over. And who defines fair? I mean, he never gives a definition of fair. It's just class warfare. 50% of all taxes are paid by people making $34,000 a year or more. What do you mean fair share? And if you look at the top 10% of taxpayers in this country, they pay 70% of the taxes. So it's already fair. This is just more class warfare rhetoric.
How should Republicans proceed on immigration? It seems there's a little bit of the party seems divided on citizenship.
Right. I believe that Senator Marco Rubio laid out an excellent guideline about what ought to be done. They didn't need to go and rewrite another one. He simply said, let's start with securing the border. The borders are not secure, even though Secretary Napolitano keeps saying that they are secure. That's not what the Border Patrol people are saying. That's not what the sheriffs are saying, that have to protect their communities in that part of the country. So start with securing the border. He said, secondly, we need to clean up the bureaucratic process that's in place. He said, there's nothing wrong with that process. It needs to be cleaned up and tightened up such that it is more efficient than it is today. And then he said, third, then let's determine a path to citizenship, which might mean people have a temporary work visa, a temporary work card, or something of that nature. And he said, but it doesn't entitle them to get in front of the line. He laid out an excellent approach that I believe many people would be able to support.
Will the president lose the fight on gun control?
If he is trying to pass what Senator Dianne Feinstein wants to pass, yes, there's probably going to be some background check legislation included, but all indications is that they're not going to get this massive, sweeping gun control legislation like they would like to have, and here's why. Not only are some Republicans running for re-election next year, a lot of Democrats are running for re-election. And they know that in their districts and in their states, they have a lot of people who do not want to see the Second Amendment tampered with.
Let's chat about 2014 for a second. This schism within the Republican Party between the establishment and conservatives, could this hurt Republicans? Could it really doom their chances of winning the Senate in 2014?
It could, and it does exist. And I don't like it, and a lot of other people don't like it. This is why I have been encouraging people not to get distracted by that, but to focus on one objective that I describe as 60 to 18. Focus on how we get 60 senators that will listen to the people. Right now, we've got almost 100 senators that aren't listening to the people. That's the big disconnect. 218 members of Congress, conservatives will still control the House. 60 would give us control of the Senate. For 2 years after that, they would be able to dramatically slow down the onslaught by this president and this administration. That's what people ought to focus on.
What about PACs? Do you think that they should be clearing the field for hand-picked candidates?
No, because I think that the competitive political process will work if the media lets it work, if some of the party leaders would let it work. I think that it produces a good slate of candidates. I don't believe that the party, in its infinite wisdom, ought to be hand-picking candidates. Let the process play out the way it is.
What about 2016? Are you going to run again?
Based upon what I know today, I have no intentions of running in 2016. But I never say never. I never wanted to run for president the first time.
Okay, if you don't run in 2016, who would you like to see run?
I don't have any specific candidates that I would like to see run, but I believe that there are a lot of good candidates in the governor's ranks, a lot of people who have been in politics for quite some time, a lot of good people. But it's too early to say who would be my favorite at this particular point.
Do you like Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio?
I like Senator Marco Rubio. I think Jeb Bush is one of the most knowledgeable, capable leaders who has been a governor. But you're going to run into the situation of the name Bush is going to be demagogued by the Democrats, as well as it may even be demagogued by other conservatives who want to see someone else. So if he decides to run, I think he has a great chance. Senator Rubio has a great chance, and there's a whole list of them.
Last question for you, Mr. Cain, is on a totally separate issue, but President Obama is said to be worried about Jay-Z and Beyonce's very controversial trip to Cuba. According to published reports, he's worried that it will cost him the White House. According to the rapper's newest lyrics, Obama has said, "Chill, you're going to get me impeached." What do you make of this, and what do you make of this trip?
I think this trip is just a distraction. That's all. And the fact that Jay-Z and Beyonce went to Cuba, in the words of my paternal grandfather, who didn't have a lot of formal education, I does not care. All of these distractions are just that. Secondly, if someone's going to talk about impeachment, about relative to President Obama, I wouldn't start with this trip to Cuba. I would start with not enforcing the Constitution. I would start with not living up to the constitutional responsibility of providing a budget on time. I would start with this failed economy. I would start with questions that are still surrounding Benghazi. I would start with a whole list of things, forcing Obamacare down the throats of the American people, and it is creating an undue burden, broken promises relative to bringing down costs and bringing down and increasing access. That's where you start. Start with whether or not he has kept his oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. Forget about going to Cuba. Let's start with those things that are serious relative to how this country is performing.
Herman Cain, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.